Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. My name is David Chen, and with me are
Devindra Hardwar.
And I'm Quigley.
Joining us today is the National Associate Entertainment Editor at avclub.com, Tasha Robinson. Welcome back to the Slash Filmcast.
Hi, David. It's always fun.
Well, Tasha, thanks for joining us today on this very special Transformers Dark of the Moon only episode of the Slash Filmcast. We're going to leave our what we've been watching and film news for an update next week. But I did want to give one quick update, which is that a couple weeks ago, I talked about how there was a suit between the guy who created the Mike Tyson tattoo and the creators of The Hangover 2. I went on kind of a tirade about how creatively bankrupt that film is and how it got them into trouble. And, of course, in the last couple weeks, it has been settled. So Ed Helms' tattoo will not be changed for the DVD/Blu-ray release. So I know a lot of you were on the edge of your seat about that one. Just wanted to resolve that. Anyway, let's move on. Before we get into this episode, I just want to say that the Slash Filmcast typically broadcasts live on Sunday nights at slashfilm.com/live. This week we're broadcasting on Friday. You can find every episode at slashfilmcast.com. You can also email us. Let us know what you think at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. So, guys, let's get right into it. This week, we all saw Transformers Dark of the Moon, the third film in the Transformers film series, directed by Michael Bay. And I got to say, I am pretty torn about the Transformers films, like on a very personal level, because on the one hand, I think that the Transformers films are good for the entertainment industry in the sense that each of these things makes a ton of money, and they're very popular all around the world. They advance the cause of event filmmaking. They advance film technology in ways that, indie films are just incapable of doing due to financial constraints. And so, on the one hand, it's good that money's keeping flowing into the coffers of people who are making movies. And I love movies, and I love the movie-going experience.
That seems like a tough argument to make, Dave, but yeah.
But on the other hand...
He's every terrible movie, too, so but I wouldn't go with that position. On
the other hand, I don't think, especially Transformers 2 and Transformers 3, I don't think these movies are good. Under any definition of the word good that I'd use. And so it's very difficult for me to justify recommending these movies or praising these movies in any way. But that's just kind of my own thing going into this discussion. Tasha Robinson, you live in Chicago and had the privilege. I'm actually surprised you're okay, given the destruction of your city that we witnessed in Transformers Dark of the Moon. Just general thoughts on this film before we get right into the nitty-gritty details.
I've got to say, as far as coming out of a film and looking around and being surprised that the city wasn't destroyed, I had a much more visceral reaction after Cloverfield than I did after this, despite the fact that we spent literally an hour watching downtown Chicago be reduced to rubble. And I mean, this is we were around for the filming. I walked through the filming a number of times, going to and from the critics' screening room downtown. So I actually saw a bunch of it happening. It's an area that's very familiar to me, and it was kind of fun to watch it be systematically destroyed. I think a lot of people in Chicago are going to see the film just to see, how the city looks. It's sort of through Michael Bay's eyes with giant robots jumping up and down on it. That said, my overall thoughts. I mean, you talk about it, forwarding the cause of event filmmaking, but is that really a cause that we want forwarded? Do we really want the studios concentrating so much of their attention on making these $200 million, $250 million, $300 million movies and putting all of their focus on that when that money could make so many, films along the order of Moon, for instance. It's right. Just... I mean, it's almost incomprehensible how many small, good movies you could make for the price of one Transformers.
Well, not to get too much into the economics, but Hollywood being a hit industry, it literally does go. Like the money that Transformers: Dark of the Moon will make literally does go into financing those smaller films, and without hits like
for this studio,
without hits like Transformers and Avatar and Dark Knight. Warner Brothers wouldn't be able to make some of the smaller, more daring films that they might have a chance. They wouldn't, the good hit films finance the smaller failure films, and so
in
that,
a way,
the trickle down effect.
I can't tell if you're playing devil's advocate or not here. Is this a legitimate position?
This is
taking?
a legitimate. I am legitimately in support of movies.
So you're fine with Wolverine? Because that movie made a shit ton of money. It accomplished nothing.
I am in support of the concept of movies making studios tons of money so that they can justify making actually good movies. That's sort of.
Yeah.
How about we actually have good blockbuster movies?
I mean, that's
review the movie,
fun.
Dave. Tell us what you think.
But does that model really work? I mean, does the success of McDonald's encourage anybody to sink McDonald's profit money into making good food, or does the studio just say, if we want $500 million this year, we need to find money for another Transformers?
I don't know. I think I think the answer to that question is probably more complex than we could get into here. But I would say, that if you ask any studio executive, they'd probably say that the money from this film does go into other films. That
sounds like trickle down economics.
Yeah, it's
like ideally.
Yeah,
spawn
go
Chipotle.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
Didn't McDonald's spawn Chipotle?
There you go, right there. I don't think they
spawned them.
They didn't spawn.
They bought them.
Yeah, they acquired them. But this exactly, Devindra. This is trickle down economics, but I'm saying,
but that doesn't really work.
Well, it doesn't really work in real life, but I'm saying in the studio system it works. Anyway, all right, look, let's get into the actual film itself. Devindra Hardawar, your thoughts on Transformers?
Yeah, Dave. I mean, I think we both enjoyed the first Transformers. We've talked about it many times. I really like the first Transformers film. I think that film was surprising because Michael Bay, he's a good action director. I've liked Bad Boys 2. I've liked his other stuff. But he made a movie where it was believable that giant robots were fighting with tiny humans on the ground. And I think on that level, it was entertaining. And the first movie was fun. And it was also funny. It has a pretty funny script. And, Shia LaBeouf was decent for that role. And I like the Bumblebee relationship. I have a lot of affection for the first movie. It's a good, decent blockbuster. You don't have to kill too many brain cells for it. You just, it's enjoyable. I don't feel dirty watching that. Transformers 2, we've reviewed. We know why that movie fell apart because of the writer's strike and everything. This, for me, sits somewhere in between. It's not nearly as enjoyable as the first film, maybe because we just don't have that sense of wonder anymore of actually seeing these things, walking around and transforming. But Bay does manage to bring some good action here. There are some great action scenes towards the end. Some of the set pieces are amazing. But I think overall this movie does not need to be 2.5 hours long. Good God, you could lose an hour of this movie, not miss anything, just keep the giant, fight at the end, and it would have been a stronger movie for it.
Not only would you'd not lose anything, you'd actually gain something in the sense of an economy of storytelling.
And if you're talking about economy, imagine how much money that would have saved. That's like $100 million right there.
Just for, I'm sure John Malkovich's fee was like $3 million alone right there.
Oh, no, I liked him. But just the rendering for some of this crap.
Right.
And some of the locations, shooting. It's nice, but I don't think you really need to be in Africa for that particular scene or something, Yeah. Whereas I actually think they were shooting in desert areas or something.
I have to say, when we see the animals running around Africa, I did have a moment of, is one of the reasons this movie's so expensive that Michael Bay just kind of said, you know what, I kind of want to visit Africa.
Exactly.
Let's get
Michael
4
Bay
shots of animals.
I really wonder if he went to the moon at some point. I don't know about the budget for this movie. It's that's actually one of the really interesting things about it. I like the action, but I sort of enjoy the early 10 minutes where he completely rewrites the space race. And I feel like, you look at the beginning of Armageddon or some of his other stuff, where Michael Bay can set up an entire movie in 5 minutes or something. You have the basic idea of what's going to happen. I think that was sort of impressive. It's just everything sandwiched in between. Most of the human stuff in this movie kind of didn't go anywhere.
I love...
Wait, you liked the space race stuff.
It was like, are we really doing this? We know this was going to happen from the trailers, but it's like, okay, let's just completely rewrite the space race. Okay, Transformers on the moon. You get some astronauts there. You try and make it realistic. I thought that was an intriguing concept. It's an intriguing way to bring the Transformers, open up this world a little. I was disappointed we didn't get any actual battles in space because you guys know how much I love that. But it's it was impressive for what it was, mainly because it was so fast. They went through the space race so quickly and rewrote it. Yeah. I thought that was impressive, just from a screenwriting perspective.
Gosh, the space race thing, I felt like that was a really interesting idea that I kind of in keeping with a lot of things that this movie does. There was a really interesting idea there, but Michael Bay just didn't want to commit to it and didn't want to do the follow through because as it's executed, first of all, I thought it was executed really poorly with this Kennedy lookalike who doesn't look much like Kennedy, kind of sloppily integrated with actual footage of the real Kennedy. The film stock kept changing, the angle kept changing. You have all of these things kind of thrown together in a way that doesn't visually fit together. And this a month after we saw pretty much the exact same thing done much better in X-Men First Class. I found it very distracting, both that it was done so poorly and, that it was done so poorly in the wake of somebody else doing it better. But then put on top of that, just from a plot perspective, it makes no sense. I mean, I love the idea that the race to get to the moon was all about recovering this technology on the moon. And, that Neil Armstrong was basically this kick-ass James Bond type rushing through this project to get to this stuff. But then the space race is abandoned. It's like we got there, we tagged the thing, we said, you're it, and then we went back to Earth and we never thought about it again. All of this gigantic alien weaponry is still just sitting there up on the moon unmolested because we kind of went and looked at it and said, okay, well, now we know what it looks like. We can go home. There's no sense of follow through. There's no sense that having all that technology in any way changed anything. None of it really makes any sense.
To be fair, Tasha, they did explain why we haven't been to the moon since then. I'm not going to give away the plot twist, but there is some sort of lip service given to the idea of that we went broke and therefore we couldn't go back to the moon.
Yeah, it served only as setup.
The fact that we had all this alien technology that could revolutionize the world didn't help with the economy at all.
Well, I once read in a Michael Crichton book, you could bring a toaster back to the Middle Ages, but where would you plug it in? Think about that.
Took Michael Crichton to make you think of that?
Think about that, Tasha.
All
right. Anyway, Adam, quickly, were you going to say something in response to this, or any thoughts on the movie in general?
Well, specifically with the space race stuff, that opening, like, Devindra, I don't know what good you saw in that. I personally found it kind of reflected another moment later in the film to me, which was just basically, it was trailer editing. It was like Michael Bay didn't really know, like, how he wanted to convey the stuff, so he, like, tried out every possible method to like how he could feature this like footage and like Tasha, like what you were saying, like switching between like raw regular footage and then like archival looking footage, and with this awkward digitalization of the presidents, and then having actors with makeup on, and it's just like all of it just like so clumsily just thrown together, shot after shot of it, and then eventually leading nowhere, just made the fact that it actually was a cool concept all the more frustrating to me. Unlike Transformers 2, which didn't have anything cool to even expect anything from. And I think people forget just how much bad material is in the first Transformers.
I haven't forgotten.
I do rewatch that movie. Like, I know what's in it. I remember it. I do revisit it. So it's like,
like the good elements of the first Transformers are basically like it's that Spielbergian quality that's brought to it by Spielberg, which is the Bumblebee and Sam relationship that sort of builds the boy and his dog relationship. But like even with that, Michael Bay still manages to taint it with his horrible sense of humor and just sense of people interacting in really, really heightened, obnoxious ways. And a good hour and a half of Transformers Dark of the Moon is just that. It's people in this constant state of high-pitched screaming with no tangible sense of like actual human normalcy, and it makes it so frustrating because then there's these other really good highs in the film with fucking giant robots beating the shit out of each other and people in general danger, and those moments would be really fun, but the problem is people are always shouting anyway, that there's no momentum to it. It just always just feel like it's in that high-pitched state and it's grating.
Okay, well, tell us how you really feel, Adam. But no,
well, like that said, I actually do think the movie is worth watching because of that hour block towards the end in Chicago. I actually, even though those action sequences have no sense of flow from one to the other, and it makes no sense narratively what's going on, the money shots are visually so cool to look at, and the 3D, I would honestly say, is the best I've ever seen for a live action film. Yeah,
the best. I mean, Michael Bay is a 3D convert. He originally wasn't into it, but then became a convert, and now he's like really pushing the technology. And I really think he like pushes this technology to its limits here. The base jumping in this movie is breathtaking and amazingly shot. There's literally guys with 3D cameras strapped to their head, jumping out of airplanes to film this movie. And that's just amazing. Like, what other movie would you find something like that in? Certainly you can't find that. That's kind of the argument I was making earlier, is like, you need to have these types of movies to have amazing action scenes in them. I just wish it was something that was that made more sense, was more satisfying on a story level. These movies like the Transformers film 2 and 3 really make you appreciate how good James Cameron really is. You know what I mean? Like, Avatar is so much like, you know, we kind of took a dump on the story for Avatar when that film came out and how rote it is and how cliche it is. But despite its shortcomings, I mean, I felt something at the end of that film, and it was a sense of like.
I would say it the other way around, though. It's not. It doesn't show you how good James Cameron is. James Cameron shows you how bad Michael Bay is.
Okay, all right, that's a fair enough point. Something else to consider in terms of like Michael Bay films is that I'm starting with the good right now, right? And that is that the money is all there up on the screen. Like,
it looks.
It looks expensive. No, but see, consider this: Green Lantern and Transformers: Dark of the Moon cost the same amount of money according to Box Office Mojo to make.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
And that's insane. If you think about, like, this movie looks like it costs double the amount that Green Lantern costs to make.
I can't help but wonder if some of that is just because, they've got the robot designs at this point. They've got the software, whereas Green Lantern had to start from scratch.
They have extensive cooperation with the military, which has helped all of Michael Bay's movies, really.
I mean, sure, whatever you want to say, help them to make it.
That is to the credit of Michael Bay. He's the one that developed those relationships and brought them to film.
And I mean, regardless of like how much help Michael Bay got in the form of sponsorships or what corporate sponsorships, which is woefully evident throughout this film.
The integrated car commercials throughout Transformers 3 are really kind of amazing. I mean, we're used to the fact that at this point that it's a big deal, like which Autobot is which car, because every single one of those Autobots represents a car that not only did he get like 10 of them for free, it's a commercial for that car, and there you have a year and a half buildup of Bumblebee is upgrading to be a such and such car or whatever. But in this one, it's like he had so many cars. John Turturro's character has to have a stable of amazing cars and has to take 5 minutes to tell us how great one of his cars is. Patrick Dempsey's character has a stable of amazing cars and has to have 5 minutes to tell us how great one of his cars is. I honestly expected, like, at any moment for Shia LaBeouf to turn to the camera and say, by the way, my character is really poor, but if I were to have a car, this is the car that I would like. It has integrated leather seating and butt warmers and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well,
I kind of like that they stuck mostly to cars as opposed to in like Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, when they had like Mountain Dew and what else? They have Xbox. I just remember like seeing so many.
Yeah, they had the robot Xbox. That was in the first one too, I think. Right?
There was a lot of Cisco telepresence in this film. A lot of Cisco.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And there was this
Lenovo for some reason.
There was this one bizarre moment when Sam's parents are in their Winnebago or whatever the hell it is, and they're making s'mores. And then Sam's dad comments on, "Wow, we're really like living off the land here," and they're eating s'mores. And then Sam's mom lifts a Bud Light can up to her mouth, and I'm like, "Hey, would you drink Bud Light to like chase down the s'mores?" And B, like, it's just so obvious, like that they're trying to.
The one that was the best was the Pepto-Bismol scene, where Sam's dad was just sitting there, just eating, just stuffing his face in the middle in public.
Yeah, I take back what I said. I forgot all these moments.
Yeah, the Pepto-Bismol is pretty good. Yeah, but So the point being, Michael Bay knows how to get money for his movies, and as a result,
like it's a good thing.
Yeah,
sometimes, though.
Sometimes it's a good thing. Most of the time, it's a bad thing. Let me get into the bad of this film, which is that.
Can I just comment that the fact that she was drinking that light beer actually felt like an organic character trait? Because, like, yeah, you would like this beer, you horrible shrew of a woman.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Anyway, the money is all there up on the screen. Like, that's the thing. You can never say these movies look cheap, like you could with Green Lantern. I mean, really, all the money in Green Lantern went into that one final action sequence, which lasts like 3 minutes. And there's like a 45, 50-minute action sequence. And it's like, it's mind-boggling to me how they were able to get this all done, even though it is hastily edited together. Now, in terms of the movie itself, I was hoping Michael Bay would learn some lessons from the first two Transformers films, but that's obviously a stupid hope, seeing as how they both made insane amounts of money. So this film, I don't think, really exhibited any signs that Michael Bay has learned from his mistakes. It's the longest.
I have to disagree with you hugely on that one, Dave. I mean,
Really?
go ahead and finish your thought, but I have to put a foot in and say I think that this represents. I could give you a laundry list of things I think he learned from the last, particularly the last one.
Okay, all right. Let me sort of refine that statement in preparation for your rebuke. Let me just say
stinging rebuke.
Your stinging rebuke of what I'm about to say. I mean, I think that first of all, he promised that he would give away $25,000 to anyone who could find any racist robots in this film. I'm expecting my check any day now because I feel like there are ethnic stereotype robots in this film as well. But the action,
there are robots that just show up, have an accent, and that's kind of their character.
Yeah, the storyline is tighter than the second film, which was difficult for it not to be tighter. But I mean, it is in fact like there's a goal, like you understand what's going on through most of the movie. So he did kind of learn that, but
he doesn't write the scripts. First of all, we know the second movie was a victim of the writer's strike. Like even Michael Bay admitted that.
And this is, I mean, the first two films were written by Kurtzman and Orsi, and this film was written only by Aaron Kruger. I can't say that I think it's much of an improvement in terms of story, but the thing that I think is really that I found pretty annoying about this film is just it's so bloated, it's so long, and it does nothing to justify that length.
Right,
I mean, you have characters like John Malkovich and Frances McDormand. All of their plot lines go nowhere. Like, what is the purpose? You could have excised those characters completely from this film, and it would not only, again, like I said to Devindra, not only not suffer, but actually be a better film because there's better sort of economy in how you're using your time here. So that's what I mean when I say he didn't really learn that much. But Tasha, you clearly disagree with me.
Well, I think that what he learned, I mean, there was so much criticism leveled at particularly the second one for the racism and the sexism and the I can't say that word.
Fetishism.
Thank you. The one that Dave said, which I'm not going to try to repeat. For some reason, I just can't get that word out. It seemed to me that there's still robots that show up and have an accent, and that's their character. There are also human characters that show up and have an accent, and that's their character.
But that doesn't make it okay.
Or they also look pretty.
But it seemed to me that the blatant, like, childish, like pre-adolescent sexism was really toned down in this film. I mean, in Frances McDormand's character comes to nothing. She serves no purpose, but at least she's like an adult female with agency and agenda. She may be the first woman that we've seen in these movies that does not exist entirely to be a sex doll of some kind or the other.
Other than Sam's mom, of course.
And you've got a black character who exists for a reason other than to be like the second banana, like making wacky jokes. You've got it just seems like there was so much more going on in this film that was at least a pretense of a slightly more adult perspective.
Here's what I'm hearing from you, Tasha. Michael Bay set the bar so low with Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
Absolutely true.
That anything slightly over that bar can be taken as signs of improvement.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I can't back Devindra's liking the first movie. The first two movies I thought were brain hurting, eye hurting, and just incredibly insulting. Just pretty much anybody who was not a white 13-year-old boy, I felt like those two movies had something in there to personally insult them. Whether it was, somebody talking about, speak Spanish, motherfucker, or speak English, motherfucker, not Spanish, or just, the racist robots, the egregious, pathetic sexism, on and on and on. This movie seemed like it stripped out a lot of the offensive attitude, at least, and just kind of got down to blowing stuff up.
You say that, but then also
it didn't really lose the homophobia.
It didn't. No, the Ken Jeong scene is really embarrassing and awkward.
Yeah,
and Alan shows up basically having the only successful comedic moments, but even that
he was so good. Yeah,
his delivery was great, but the character was awful.
Except for that one bar scene.
Who had the idea that he's going to show up and he's going to have a wacky German accent and that's his character? Mm-hmm. That's the sum total of his character.
Knowing Alan Tudyk, it was probably him. He was probably just written, and he was like, I'll do something to differentiate myself from all the other talking white dudes.
I like to think that Michael Bay like told him how he wanted his character to be. He's like, well, I'm Alan Tudyk, so I'll nail it anyway.
But I mean, we've seen him do like a scary badass role. If you're in the movie full of giant exploding robots, why wouldn't you want to be the only scary badass? Considering that nobody else can keep a straight face in these movies because they're too busy knocking things over and tripping over their own feet and making penis jokes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're talking about things that actually got improved in this movie, I will point to the action. And I do think, especially compared to Transformers 2, which was like, for some reason, Michael Bay decided he would experiment with like Paul Greengrass, shaky cam. And the camera would be all over the place. And you can never see what was happening. At least in this movie, it's like, it is very clear. And actually, I think some of his framing this time is very interesting, too. It's like, there were some interesting uses. I think of all directors at this point, Michael Bay can shoot a giant robot that isn't actually in a scene. So I feel like he has perfected that bit.
Yeah.
So action-wise, this was a lot more impressive to me. The first movie was fun when it comes to action. There were some great set pieces, but here, you have good action set pieces. You have other things that just involve buildings, which I think was really well executed.
I agree.
Damn that middle half of the movie.
I agree with you mostly, Devindra. I mean, I wrote an article at slashfilm.com called Things I Did Not Like About Transformers Dark of the Moon, which you can find by Googling if you'd like. And one of the things I said was that I don't think Michael Bay has solved what I call the Transformers battle problem. And by that I mean, it is difficult when you're filming, say, and editing a war movie to communicate some kind of momentum in the battle. Like you have a gigantic, like any war movie, not even Transformers. Like if you have a battle, it's hard to like depict like, okay, who's dying, who's killing who, and then like who's winning. That's the most important thing. Where are people? These are the questions that you as a viewer kind of are trying to wrap your head around when you're watching a battle sequence. And it's very hard to communicate that stuff. And certainly the second film didn't do this effectively, and I was hoping that the third film of the Transformers series would do it effectively, and he does it slightly better, but in the end, I think that all you really end up getting is a series of, like some really spectacular action set pieces, some really impressive action sequences, but just strung together randomly. Like you could have like played what is it, the game where you could reorder any number of those final action set pieces, and it wouldn't make any difference in terms of the flow of that film. And you compare this to a movie like, say, 13 Assassins by Takashi Miike, which also concludes with a massive, like, 40-minute long battle sequence, and how that film is so much more... It's not great, but it's so much more effective at communicating like the ebb and flow of battle than Transformers Dark of the Moon is. Ditto Saving Private Ryan. I think that's like the best example where you have at the beginning of the film very clear idea of who's winning that battle, and at the final battle sequence of Saving Private Ryan, same thing. Again, Transformers Dark of the Moon does not succeed in making a cohesive, coherent like battle, 40-minute long battle that makes sense to my sensibilities.
But what you're describing isn't even specific to the battle sequences. Michael Bay's terrible at that, period. Like, he has no sense of the character through line. Like in the movie, there are so many scenes that follow one another. You're just like, what the fuck is happening?
Right.
Why is Ken Jeong running around like an idiot? And it just like goes on forever, and that's because Michael Bay doesn't care about the characters.
See, you say that it was not always this way. I mean, even Armageddon had a better sense of flow than this film.
Even Bad Boys too. Like that movie, at least it ends somewhere, and it feels like that was like a direct narrative, right?
Yeah.
And even the crazy highway battle in Bad Boys 2, it made sense for what they were doing, even though that was crazy in its own reasons.
Yeah,
there are some crazy sequences in Dark of the Moon where it honestly felt like Michael Bay got bored and wandered away.
Yeah.
The one that stood out for me most is, I mean, first of all, speaking of character arcs, we spend way too much of this movie worrying about Shia LaBeouf, whether he's going to get a job, his unemployment crisis. And we go on and on and on and on about that. And then he gets a job and it comes to nothing. Apparently it's only there so he can be in that office in order to, get the information from Ken Jeong. And then he gets
it's because these are character-driven movies. I mean, the first movie was about him graduating high school, and he's sort of is a coming-of-age story. And the second one was him going to college, and the third one's about his first job.
Yeah.
This is how they pitch all movies, and yet none of these movies are about that at all.
That's just it. So he's in the office. he's attacked by Laserbeak, and that sequence literally ends in the middle of a battle, and then you just see him someplace else, and it's like, what came of the giant fight in the office? How did he get out of that? Why is he just somewhere else now? It was just, I mean, that, and like the movie essentially ends with Michael Bay kind of shrugging and walking away. There's just like 2 lines of voiceover narration, and we cut to black, and then it's sort of like, oh, I guess Michael Bay is done. I mean, it's like he hung up on the phone sex line the second he was finished. It's just the abruptness with which he switches from thing to thing to thing as he seems to lose interest. What typified this movie most for me, what and in a way horrified me most, is there's a moment in the big action sequence at the end where one of the anonymous soldiers that's running around base jumping and whatnot loses his grip on the falling over building and falls out of the building presumably to his death.
Yep.
We watch him fall. We watch him getting closer and closer to the ground. And then the camera just wanders off and loses him. We don't see him hit. We don't hear him hit. We instead go to slow-mo and watch a desk slowly falling by the glowing red eye of Shockwave. And it's like, this character is going to die, and it's a big moment because we've got a very small group of dedicated heroes fighting their best against, innumerable odds, and hey, look, a desk falling in slow motion. Michael Bay literally loses interest in the character that's dying, like on the way to his death. He loses interest and forgets about him.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, actually. That was kind of sad. I was like, what happened to that guy? I don't think he lived, though.
I think that was the implication, right?
But going back to my other point, it would be difficult to make a sort of coherent battle scene with humans. But here you have these gigantic machines who can, one machine could kill like thousands of humans easily, and that makes it even harder to string together the sequences in a way that makes sense and gives a sense of momentum. And speaking of which, what is the sort of wisdom of the plan of these Decepticons? I mean, the idea is, and this is not really a spoiler in my opinion, but it's kind of the premise of the bad guy's plan. So if you don't hear that, then skip ahead.
I mean, it's not in the trailer, so it is something that people
exactly.
will likely go into the
I know
movie
a lot of people are watching these movies for the plot, so just giving you the heads up. But their whole plan is to bring Cybertron into like Earth's orbit and then use humanity as slave labor to rebuild the planet. Couple of things about that plan that I'm curious about. Number one single transformer can do the work of 10,000 guys. So is it really a solid plan?
Why not just make more Transformers?
Yeah,
no, they have tiny little hands. It's like in Schindler's List. They need humans because humans have little tiny hands that can get in there and work all of those bazillion pieces that Transformers are made out of.
I guess. And then also the idea of bringing a gigantic metal surface within orbit of Earth. The physics of it.
That would cause a couple problems.
Yeah, it would cause so many issues.
Tidal waves would, it would screw everything up.
Block out the sun occasionally.
The planet would just get all fucked up.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say, and I know this is earth-shattering, is that this movie might not be 100% scientifically accurate. And
well, hey, do you remember the point where Sentinel Prime explains the space bridge by screaming in Francis McDormand's face, "It defies your laws of physics," which just kind of gave me a giggle because it implies humans have their own laws of physics, which apparently this ancient robot that's been deactivated for 50 years knows all about, even though he didn't know humanity existed. And his technology is specifically designed to defy those laws of physics.
Exactly.
Well,
what's the problem?
I will say honestly though, guys, that is a little debatable. You can't. Anyway, we don't even know our physics. Let's be honest here. So,
we have no idea what the hell we're talking about. But all right, let's move into spoilers for this film. But before we do that, let me just ask you, would you recommend this film to people? And if so, what would you say to them? Let's say someone says to you, Transformers 3, is it good? / should I see it? What would you say, Tasha Robinson?
I really feel like at this point these movies are a known prospect. I mean, we've kind of taken a little shit over at the AV Club for reviewing the movie specifically in reference to the first two. I mean, I honestly think that this is the best of the trilogy without actually thinking it's a good movie. I feel like at this point, if you've seen a Transformers movie, you know what to expect. So, what I've been saying to people is, no, it's not good, but I think it's better than the last two. If you enjoyed the last two, this one has more explosions, is a little more coherent, and is a little less annoyingly racist.
I agree completely with that, Tasha Robinson, but Devindra, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this movie is critic-proof. It really doesn't matter what we say. I was at a matinee at some point earlier this week, and it was like I was there. There were parents. There were a handful of teenagers, mostly parents and kids. There was uproarious applause every time the Transformers.
Oh, same here. Yeah, same here.
Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, I swear to God, maybe a standing ovation. So people love the series for some reason. It doesn't matter what we say. I personally, I really like Transformers 1. That movie had, you're talking about like the battles that make sense in the narrative direction. Everything makes a lot more sense in that movie. Even Megan Fox is, as the sexist character that Michael Bay, or what he did with her, she had a personality. She wasn't just a pretty blonde model who for some reason works at a museum or was working in British. What was she? She was in this movie. The girl was like the British Foreign Office or something.
She's apparently the British Foreign Office, and now she's the personal assistant to a guy who lives in the Milwaukee Art Museum, as near as we can tell.
Exactly. So it's like this movie has characters that even the human characters are like less interesting to me than the first one. And the first one, the high school life was actually there. We saw that Shia LaBeouf's character had friends. He was he was kind of dealing with this whole thing of meeting these aliens. I think there's a lot to like about that movie. But really, this one, if you enjoyed the other two at all, I would say wait for the matinee at some point. But do see it in 3D, because it actually does look pretty good, and I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I actually am curious to see this film in 3D IMAX, if possible, because I imagine that's a pretty spectacular experience. Adam Quigley, any thoughts before we move into spoilers?
I feel like there's more that I want to say,
okay.
But this movie just kind of... For a good hour and a half, just kind of sucked out my life force, and trying to recollect like that experience. It's kind of difficult.
All right.
Mostly, whenever I play back the film in my head, I just think about Ken Jeong, and it makes me sad. But yeah, we didn't mention at all until just now, Devindra. Thank you, Rosie Huntington Whiteley. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but yeah, she's just kind of like a non-entity in this film.
She's just there.
Yeah, it's like Michael Bay. I find him kind of hilarious as a filmmaker because like watching his movies, it's like, man, I really would not like this guy in real life. But there's something amusing about being able to so easily like see through the illusion of like why he's doing what sort of caused him to make the decisions he made, and like within 2 seconds you can understand why he cast Rosie Huntington Whiteley.
Well, from the first shot of her rear end,
yeah,
we're introduced to this character.
That's the first shot is her ass, and then for most of the movie, she's just wearing this super tight white dress.
Yeah. And then there's the comparison between like the car. Patrick Dempsey's character is like, this car has all the curves, right? It was made to be loved by men or something, and it just the camera is on the girl.
I think you're really underrating the complexity of her character. I mean, I think that she serves many, many story functions. She's a nag. She's a shrew. She's a bimbo. When he gives her a $200,000 Mercedes, and she's just like, but it's a pretty car. I wanted it. Why would that make you jealous? Poor boy who I'm dating, who can't drive a nice car, let alone give me a free car. And then she's a pretty princess in peril who needs to be rescued for the back half of the movie. I mean, so many story functions for just one simple character.
But she's also a take charge badass, as we see towards the end.
Yeah, she calls Megatron a bitch. I mean,
that's really all she does. That's really all she does.
And it works.
She contains multitudes. She is, I mean, getting back to Michael Bay's lack of interest in character consistency or arc, she is pretty much whatever she needs to be in whatever scene. And if the scene doesn't need her, then she can just stand there with her mouth hanging open. In
many ways, she is more of a construct than the Transformers. So I found that hilarious.
She's like the manic pixie dream girl of the Michael Bay universe. But Tasha, I found it interesting you were talking about how this movie is less sexist when literally maybe the 5 minutes into when we're introduced to like the present day human characters, it begins with this like very long extended ass shot of Rosie Huntington-Whiteley. I mean,
in slow motion.
That is,
and she's walking up the stairs, so we're like right below her.
So you can really see like the upskirt area. That is really what I would describe as the maturation of a filmmaker right there on evidence.
It honestly, that didn't bother me nearly as much as Megan Fox trying to fold herself at a 45-degree angle while humping a motorcycle in short shorts. I mean, I honestly, she's going upstairs to
Please do not begrudge us that sequence.
Yeah, but where's mine? You know, where's the naked beefcake that just sprawled across a Mercedes for absolutely no reason?
That's true.
Yeah,
it's a Michael Bay movie.
I really think Tyrese and like Josh Duhamel, like they should have just been shirtless.
I think Michael Bay, I'm not joking here at all, I think Michael Bay would find that too gay. I think that is really why there's not of that going on.
With that, yeah.
He's uncomfortable with that, exactly as we see in the movies.
One of the writers at the AV Club, Zach Handlin, did a piece when the last movie came out that I found really interesting, sort of about sexuality in Michael Bay movies. You can find it at theavclub.com. It's really interesting. It kind of goes through and analyzes them just in terms of the way Michael Bay seems to be afraid of women and afraid of sexuality. And all of the women in his movies are sort of this combination of like fetish model and this sort of sniggering adolescent, sex is scary, but maybe if we kind of make fun of these women, we can make it less scary for ourselves. When she's walking up the stairs in her underwear, they've had sex. She's going upstairs to her lover to have a conversation. And it just, the sexuality in this movie was fairly frank, I thought, was fairly acknowledging of the fact that these two people have been in bed together for sexual purposes, as opposed to the motorcycle humping, which is, to me, is all about the unattainable ideal of the pinup model who you're supposed to leer at and maybe masturbate to, but never actually get with.
Wow, that is a pretty in-depth reading of that scene, and I don't know that I can agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that I can agree with that.
I can absolutely understand you not agreeing, and it's certainly not something I thought in the moment. It's just me kind of trying to unpack the fact that I didn't have the eye-rolling revulsion to that I had to for instance, the Decepticon shaped like a hot girl that jumps on Shia LaBeouf and tries to hump him and rape him with a giant metal phallus at the same time.
You're talking about in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, right?
Yes, I'm talking about Revenge of the Fallen, and why the most recent movie I thought was better than Revenge of the Fallen, because it didn't have somebody trying to rape Shia LaBeouf.
I mean, I don't know. That sounds kind of like a Cronenberg-esque scene. just hearing you describe that.
Speaking of Cronenberg-esque, I mean, instead of a woman with a tail that's a phallus, in this one we have the giant multi-pronged phallus of doom. You can see that in the trailer, wrapping around a building and crushing it to death. I mean, that's some serious Japanese hentai stuff there. Am I the only one that saw that? Every time that thing reared up out of the ground and started sprouting penises in all directions, I was like, Michael Bay, you've gone in some really interesting directions since we saw you last.
Tasha, to paraphrase Sigmund Freud, sometimes a gigantic multi-tentacled robotic killing machine is just a gigantic multi-tentacled robotic killing machine. I mean, I don't know. I did not see penises when I saw that device, but maybe
when you watch it in IMAX, I'm sure you will.
Exactly. All right. Well, I agree with you guys. I think that this movie.
I wanted to address something else about the Rosie Huntington character.
Please.
Which I thought it was hilarious, just how completely they undermined Megan Fox's character.
Yeah, she was such a bitch. That's it.
All of that we had spent 2 movies building up this relationship. So yeah, it didn't fucking matter. that girl was a bitch.
Well, apparently,
you know what, guys? I will say this: I sort of missed Megan Fox because at least she was despite however Michael Bay utilized her, she had a spunkiness. She had an attitude that I felt sort of transcended what he was trying to do, at least, right? It felt like she was her own person, even when the camera had the male gaze on her. Whereas this one, Rosie Huntington is just like a robot. She's literally a robot doing exactly what Michael Bay
She's not literally, don't get people confused. She's not literally a robot in this movie. But
she may be.
I don't know. Yeah, I was wondering if that was sort of the intended twist. They actually explicitly state.
It's
We already
appropriate.
had that twist. Oh well.
It's appropriate that her name is Whiteley because she is like a ghost in this movie, and by that I mean her character is barely there. She doesn't. I can't think of a single adjective to describe her like that doesn't focus on her physical characteristics. So you're right, Devindra. I actually Megan
is
Fox.
British.
Yeah, Megan Fox actually has some some chutzpah, and. That's at least something you can, I don't know, latch onto as opposed to this character.
Exactly.
Which is, but it did come out in the press that Michael Bay claims, I have no idea if this is true, that Steven Spielberg asked for Megan Fox to be fired. And Steven Spielberg...
Over comments she made comparing Michael Bay to Hitler.
Yes, or she called Michael Bay a Nazi. Steven Spielberg, not someone who takes those comparisons lightly, and apparently ordered for her to be fired. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's certainly what Michael Bay said. I love the endlessly, continuing battle between...
Petty rivalry between the two.
Exactly. Yeah. Although Fox's career, I mean... It's not been going very well, if my understanding is correct. Like, she's had 3 films in a row that haven't done well. I'm thinking, of course, of Jennifer's Body. This includes Jennifer's Body and Jonah Hex. So I feel like she needed...
She was also in Passion Play.
Oh,
you guys remember that movie?
There you go. I think she needed this movie more than this movie needed her. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So one other thing, actually, I want to say before we get into spoilers, which is that since this is critic proof, all we're doing is talking about what we liked and didn't like about this film. And Ken Jeong, Adam, you mentioned him. Why is it I feel like whenever I see Ken Jeong appear on screen in a film or TV show, that U.S. Asian male race relations have just taken 3 steps back? I always root for Asian Americans to be better represented in film and TV, but Ken Jeong makes me ask. Ken Jeong makes me ask, at what cost does that come? And sometimes even having it, having Asians represented is maybe not what I want. As Ken
Well, maybe
Jeong
if it's like a one-note thing, that's probably not the best. He's probably not the best example of the male Asians.
Yeah, it just.
Yeah.
I feel like he always portrays. I don't think I've seen a portrayal of that he has given that portrays Asian males in a positive light. And I'm not saying that's his job. I'm not saying it's his burden to do so. But I'm just saying, like, as a fact, none of the characters he's portrayed have been particularly wholesome or normal. Shall we say in any sense?
He's played normal characters, but mostly as side characters in movies, not like the leads. Whenever he's either like a guest star or he's like one of the bigger roles, then he goes into full-on crazy mode. He
is in 2 movies this summer that will make over $300 million. And in both films, he plays a ridiculous human being. So it kind of bothers me, but whatever. Like... It's not that big of a deal.
It's more like maybe at some point he should just give up, or he should try to refine.
Try something
stick.
new, try something dramatic.
Exactly.
That's what I want to see. Don't just keep hammering the same stick into the.
And it does work for him sometimes. Like, I love him in Community. Like, I think Community utilizes his crazy energy really well. But you give that to Michael Bay, right? And that's like handing a nuclear weapon over to a child. It's just they don't know what to do with it, and they end up causing the apocalypse.
All right, let's move into spoilers for Transformers: Dark of the Moon.
Spoilers about to play.
Spoilers starting now for Transformers: Dark of the Moon. If you don't want to hear what happens at the end, you should stop listening. So you guys mentioned this, but...
Well, first question, what happens at the end? What are the spoilers that we can talk about?
I don't really even know. Well, I will say that Rosie Huntington Whiteley outwits Megatron at the end of the film. So she does.
Which seems really difficult since we've seen him as such an intellectual character with such complicated, nuanced planning so far.
But I mean, come on, couldn't Megatron wait literally 5 minutes before initiating his plan against?
Couldn't he wait?
The dude is kind of missing. The dude is literally missing 50% of his head at this point. I don't think we're getting his best thinking.
How did he survive the last movie? I forget this. Where did he end up, and why does he look like
he did escape? He did escape at the end of the last movie, but it was in the first one where he died, and then he was revived in the second film.
You know what really annoyed me about this ending? I love the action. I loved most of the set pieces, but for pretty much half an hour, Optimus Prime is wrapped up in cable, like the fucking the guy in The Fly. And he's like, help me. And meanwhile, everybody's in trouble. They're falling out of buildings. Transformers are dying left and right. And Optimus Prime is wrapped up in cable.
Because it's not like we've ever seen Optimus Prime wield any sort of cutting implement that's attached to his arm. That could be very useful for a situation like this.
He's also pretty heavy, so I don't think those cables could really hold him for very long. That was just like a weird clock mechanic where, then he shows up at the end of the movie to have that final fight. But basically, if he was around doing stuff, the whole building sequence, a lot of the scenes would have never happened.
Also, about that building sequence, which was awesome, just thinking about the way they filmed it is like, like, I don't know, they must have had some kind of gimbal that moved this whole set around. Mm-hmm. It looks amazing. It's very well executed.
It's a total fuck you to Inception, too, which I found it was kind of funny, because I was like, if you're gonna, twirl around a hallway to pretend the building is toppling over, let's just topple over a building, or at least
you might as well just take down the whole building. Although, they're like, okay, we got to take out that one weak point in this gate, and so let's go to the top of that building, and the building is clearly looks like it's about to fall over any second. Didn't someone be like, hey, wait, guys, I think that building is gonna literally like rip in half in about 30 minutes. Like, why are we going to do
can't one of the Transformers do this? Because they can get up faster than us.
And there's just this ongoing, and it doesn't matter. It's like they get up there and then they're so distracted for what feels like the sequence in that building where the building is falling over feels like it goes on for a half an hour by itself. And, they're going to fall out of it. They're going to fall into the next building. They're going down. They're going up. They're base jumping, whatever. And it's all just to get a little closer to this one building, which turns out to not matter. There were so many points throughout the big battle sequence at the end where I felt like I'd lost track of what they were trying to do, and it seemed like they had too.
There was also this, going back in time, there's also this pointless subplot of the Autobots abandoning Earth, which I think was actually already explored in Transformers 2. And why did you need to include that in there? Like, what is the whole point of that? You could have not had that entire
It was
subplot.
Emotional.
You're supposed to feel the pathos of, Earth being abandoned by its only protectors and, falling victim to these incredibly powerful things.
Right. Which, by the way...
David, did you not feel it? Did you not feel that
Did you
emotion?
not cry?
I did.
Like, when their ship blew up, did you not weep?
No,
and actually shooting that, I believe in Cape Canaveral, it looks like the actual NASA buildings.
Yeah, I think that's actually why they filmed it. Was because he was like, I want to do something at Cape Canaveral
to play on these new, this new set with his toys. It is funny that I guess the government will just do that. We'll just exile them when they're the only protectors we have. They're all we've got.
Yeah,
we can't take these things on, so let's just kick them off the planet.
Literally 15 minutes before that scene happens, you got a scene where you have dozens and dozens of Decepticons teleporting into Washington, D.C. Right. And it's like, okay, what's happening in the interim when those Decepticons are just out? Nothing can stop them, right? So they're just completely laying waste to the Capitol, and we're going to send away our only weapon that can defend against them. It just makes no sense. It adds nothing to the film other than an extra 20 minutes.
It does. And honestly, though, a little maybe screenwriting edit where if the government, if Frances McDormand's character was actually in on it, at least that would make sense, right? If they were trying to trick the Decepticons or something.
Yeah.
But no, we don't even get that.
I think there's a certain feeling that just, there aren't enough Autobots. They're not going to be able to do any damn good. The Decepticons have basically said, send them away or we're going to blow even more shit up, which given their propensity for just, we're going to blow up Chicago just to show you that we have guns. It doesn't really feel like they're going to change their minds and be much nicer with the Autobots gone.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is sort of a terroristic ploy. where they're not saying, things will be better with them gone. They're saying, they're like, 8 of them? Something like that. Get rid of them. They can't win. And we just don't want to be bothered. Yes. And it's not like they've been effective so far. I mean, as we saw at the beginning of the second movie, they pretty much just show up and make a huge mess wherever they go. Maybe things will be easier under our new robot overlords.
Yeah.
Maybe they will, get over their need to destroy everything if they don't have anybody on their own scale to fight.
Nicely said.
I actually did, as terrible as things went down with like Patrick Dempsey's character and how terribly written he is, I had a lot of fun with him as the villain, as being the sort of guy who could just completely sell out humanity. Mainly because these days we see Patrick, Dempsey as like this dream guy, right? He's like the paragon of a nice guy. So it's fun to see him being a dick. For once,
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I felt like Patrick Dempsey was having fun in this movie.
Yeah.
So, and the same with John Malkovich, although his character is a little bit more annoying. But
I would have kept John Malkovich
completely pointless.
Completely pointless. Yeah,
it's all pointless. But he at least had a fun role compared to some other people in this movie.
Let me tell you the most witty thing in this entire film, which was when early on in the film a character's watching Star Trek. And it's like, you're watching Star Trek again? Yeah, this is the one where Spock goes insane. That was pretty clever because obviously, for those who don't know, Leonard Nimoy played Spock in the original Star Trek, and he also plays Sentinel Prime, who ends up going insane at the end of this film. So I thought that was like the one moment of like, witty. And I
don't think he went insane. I think that was a very complex character motivated by various political differences.
All right. Well, I think that's where we got to agree to disagree, Adam Quigley. Any other things?
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of complex characters, you're referring to like that base jumping sequence earlier, and like I keep like playing back so many of the movie shots in my mind, and it's like Michael Bay had such an incredible sense of depth, which you especially get with the 3D, and just his sense of scale and the way of presenting this action. He knows it so well, and he's so good at it, and you're just like hoping that at some point there's going to be these connecting scenes before and after that actually make those scenes in between matter. But it seems like you look at that final, like that hour block of action, and it's like scene after scene of all the in-between stuff with none of the connecting scenes.
Yeah,
right. It's almost as if Michael Bay needs to like team up with a director, who's better with characters and maybe dialogue.
Yeah.
And maybe a director who isn't good at action. Well, yeah, it's George Lucas' problem. But imagine like a Kevin Smith and Michael Bay joint project. That would be sort of crazy.
But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Michael Bay is going to be doing second unit stuff anytime soon, unfortunately. Any other thoughts about specific things you liked or disliked about this film before we wrap things up for today, guys?
I'm going to say
talk about this movie again.
Tasha, go ahead.
Just getting into the whole idea of Optimus Prime kind of being, shut down and dangling from cables throughout half of that, the big action sequence at the end.
Yeah.
One of the things I have never understood about this movie series is the wussification of Optimus Prime. I mean, you have this character that is a gigantic hero robot, with a noble heart and the amazing voice of Peter Cullen. And these movies just kind of systematically break him down. I mean, in the first one, you have him tripping over things and going, my bad, and just walking away like apathetic while one of his people gets captured and hauled off to be like disassembled. In this one, you have his, speaking of spoilers, his right arm guy gets killed and there's never any reaction. I mean, it's like they never learned anything from the 1984 animated movie where they were like, we're just going to kill off all of the Transformers and introduce a new toy line. And there was a huge fan backlash. There are so many people that are willing to be emotionally invested in these characters, and they just kind of shrug it off. And then in this one, kind of as it happened in the last one, he gets into a fight and he spends half of it begging for his life, pleading for his life, just groveling on the ground and saying, please don't kill me, please. And I was like, where's the heroism in this? This is like the big tough guy of this movie. This is the Rock of this series, and we've got him on his face begging for his mentor to not kick his ass, and then Megatron basically comes and saves him.
and then like he straight executes Megatron, like, and Megatron like begs for his life too, and he spares like no humanity whatsoever. He's like, nah, man, just like decapitates him. What does he do?
Yeah.
This movie, the whole trilogy. I mean, this is something that came up a lot in regards to the first movie. It's just the habitual sticking your arm down somebody's neck hole and like ripping like their guts and their head out. You know, and the fact that it's just a big fistful of like nuts and bolts doesn't really excuse the fact that you're basically doing, you know, Street Fighter execution moves. But yeah, you're right. But
they're not characters. You don't like Optimus Prime. I don't really feel like he says cool things in a cool voice, but he's never really been a character. None of the robots have been any characters.
No, they've been characters in the first movie. This is like why, in that you guys mentioned the Bumblebee. The Bumblebee scene. Like, you feel something there because yes, you have that connection at least to Bumblebee and Sam, and it's like when Bumblebee gets taken away, that it sort of does affect you in a way that nothing, you know, none of the other relationships can, because that movie at least had the goal of setting up relationships. Transformers 2 just kind of went along with the relationships it set up in Transformers 1. This one also kind of relies on all that. So neither of the sequels have actually tried to build up the relationships anymore, whereas the first movie was forced to.
The relationship between Bumblebee and Sam has become the relationship of like a particularly grumpy hunter to like his least competent and most servile hunting dog. I mean,
yeah, seriously.
He spends all of his time like berating Bumblebee and screaming at him while Bumblebee like curls up and gives him the big eyes and looks like he wants to piddle on the ground. Every time the two of them spoke, I got depressed because all he does is pretty much scream at him.
Yeah, and these Transformers used to be gods, you know, like they used to rule the universe, and now they're treated like pets by human beings. It's fairly depressing.
And really bad pets at that. Yeah, I think when Son Prime kind of does his line about how you know we used to be kings of the universe, he's kind of got a point. It's like why are we letting Shia LaBeouf, of all people, who cannot even get over his own girl issues, why are we letting him, you know, boss one of our gigantic Doom robots around?
I see who's going to sell us out in the robot revolution, Tasha.
I'm just saying, I welcome our new robot overlords.
All right, guys. I think that's going to bring us to the end of this review of.
Can I give my final word?
Please go ahead, Adam.
Overall, even though I said almost entirely negative things about the film, I do actually think it's worth watching and in theaters and paying for 3D. And I know it's a lot of money, but it really, like, the visual composition of the action is like it's stunning. Like it's unlike most things you'll ever have an opportunity to see.
Yeah.
And for that alone, I think it's worth it. And when you're forced to trudge through the other stuff, I actually do find it kind of entertaining to psychoanalyze Michael Bay in every moment and see like what he brought to the table and like what he was trying to do and how incompetent he is. That also brings its own sort of share of benefits as long as you're willing to partake.
Also, enjoy the Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol trailer, which was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
I will watch that so many times.
I have watched that trailer like a dozen times already. It is so good.
So that's one reason to see this in theaters.
Yeah, there you go. And yet, this is a movie that restored in me the faith of what 3D was capable of in a live-action situation. I mean, we have seen like conversion after conversion that's just been so half-baked, so poorly done. I mean, we're reviewing this film, 2 weeks after we reviewed Green Lantern? Green Lantern should be embarrassed by this film, like for a variety of reasons, okay? Like the 3D in this film is worlds away from the Green Lantern 3D, I mean, which is like a hasty up conversion. It looked like a hasty up conversion at least. And also, the scale of what Michael Bay was able to achieve was bigger than just like one action set piece that lasted a few minutes. Like, this is massive, like, action on a massive scale, and occasionally you feel the stakes. So, Transformers, Dark of the Moon, check it out for the spectacle, not for the storyline or the characters. That's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of the Slash Filmcast. Music for this episode will be brought to you courtesy of the Transformers soundtrack, written by Steve Jablonsky. A pretty damn good soundtrack, at least for the first film. I think the second and third films basically just reused many portions of the first film soundtrack. Right. And you can find every episode of the Slash Filmcast at slashfilmcast.com. You can also email us. Let us know what you think of the show at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. So, Tasha Robinson, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week?
You can find me at avclub.com, and you can find me on Twitter at Tasha Robinson, no space.
Devindra Hardware?
You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Devindra. I write about technology at venturebeat.com, and I do a tech podcast at thedrilldown.com. Everything else I do is at devindra.org.
Adam Quigley?
You can find me writing for slashfilm.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/alwayswatching.
Twitter.com/Dave Chensky. That's Dave Chen, SKY. You can find me at davechen.net and tobolowskifiles.com. We'll be back on our normal schedule next Sunday night, July 10th, to review Seth Gordon's newest film, Horrible Bosses. And that's it. Thanks, guys, for listening to this special episode for Transformers Dark of the Moon. We'll see you guys later.